and the third being the I Ching. So please, welcome Gabriel.
Thank you for the short introductions. Good evening. I'm very pleased to be here and to present my project about morphic Yi Jings. And I think you are pleased too that this is the last conference. So in order to be fast and clear, I will give you some introductions to the Yi Jing. I don't know how many from you has already some experiences with the I Ching. I will be very short to explain the basic principle of the I Chings, or I Ching, or the Book of Change. Then I will say something about synchronicity and the way I'm understanding the synchronicity. And then we will go suddenly to the morphic field. There's a pragmatic definitions coming from Rupert Sheldrake. And then I will explain the aim, the goals of my morphic field project. And at the end, I will give some example. So basically, when we talk about, when we do science, I would say this may be a little bit provocative, but doing science is basically telling stories we believe for some good reasons to be true. So, and there are different ways to tell stories. And if we look at the classical way from the Newtonian framework, so we are using three concepts basically. We are talking about space, we have time, and we have concepts like energy, concept, fields. And the work of a scientific is to map all what is observed onto these three concepts. And it's worked very well, I would say. It's worked very well, but the problem is when we talk about space, we don't have a real understanding of what is space. So we have an intuitive feeling, but we are not sure that is the really concept of space. And I would say today the modern quantum mechanics is delivering a completely new view about space. And the same occurs with time. For the Newtonian physicists, the time is something flowing separately from the space, and it is nice to sequence some events, so as the parametrizations of times, and but the real nature of time is still not clear to everyone. And at the end, we are using the concept of energy, which is a very brilliant concept. It is just general to have this concept, but absolutely, the concept of energy, we don't know what it is. So we know things about energy, so we can transform energy from mechanical energy to thermal energy to chemical energy to nuclear energy, and energy is conserved. But we use energy only considering differences of energy levels. So what energy is absolute concept, we don't know. We're just working about different level of energy. But this is, I mean, the stories a physicist explain stories about atoms meeting each together, cracking. A biologist talk about cells coming together and to deploy to become cells, to be reproductive, and so on. And this is one way to do science, is one way to tell stories about what we are observing in the universe. And the I Ching is also a way to tell story, but it's completely different. So the concept using by the I Ching is I Ching is a very old theory. In my opinion, it is the first model of theoretical physics to explain the universe. And it is based on two principles called easily yin and yang. And then the role of yin and yang is that yin and yang are always changing. So what is yin? What is the yin? Yin represents only what is developing to become yang, and yang is what becomes yin in an endless oscillation. And then to explain the move between yin and yang, we have developed some to make the two states little bit more complex. So we have yes and no, if you want. So we have 4 different states. So we have the old yin, the yang yin, the yang, and the old yang. And what happens? I mean, as soon as the yin has become old, it becomes a yang. The yang becomes an old yang. The old yang becomes a yang yin, and the yang yin becomes a yang yin. And this is ceaseless, always. Since the universe exists, we have this dynamic. So this is the basic principle of Yi Jing. We have these 2 elements, and the basic of the universe is to establish an equilibrium between yin and yang. Now we may say, so these 4 states, they also represent a logical system of 4 values. And they're changing. So this means a state may be true or false. It can also be neither true nor false, or it is false, but also true. And the fact, the big change between this way to tell story in comparison with the Newtonian one is that something being true today may be false tomorrow. Or it may change. I mean, it was wrong yesterday, but today is neither wrong nor true. And this is something we don't have in our classical system, because we have this neither trap. This is something is true or wrong, and it's never changing. And the Yi Jing is offering these new options that states in the logical system may change with the time. So it changes with the time. The only thing that may be against this worldview is that how can we explain with only 4 big pictures, the old yin, the yang, the old yang, the yang, so all the universe. And this is something very magic with the number 4, because the number 4 is somehow explaining a symbol from the limit of the manageable, by brain manageable complexity of the world. And if we look around, so we have the 4 space-time dimensions we cannot visualize. So we can visualize still 3 dimensions. But our brain is not able to visualize 4 dimensions. And then, if we look in the mathematics, this is a so-called algebraic equations. And if we, for this kind of equations with the rank, the degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have always an algorithmic solutions. So we can evaluate all the value for which the function is equal to 0. And as soon as we have the degree 5, we cannot. It has been proved that there is no solutions, general solutions for this kind of equations. So again, the number 4 is indicating a kind of threshold for the complexity we can manage in our mind. And also, in the physics today, we have 4 basic interactions. The gravitations, everybody knows where was that. We then have the electromagnetic force. We have the low interactions and the strong interactions. These 2 are responsible in the subatomic world to maintain the nucleus together, collapse, consistent, and the low interactions is the beta decay. And the physicists are trying since ever to unify these 4 unitary forces, but till today, they don't have been very successful. So this is to explain that this number 4 we have in the Yi Jings. They are also in our framework of scientific framework. Then we have more. So we are defining with these 4 big pictures. The next step is, so we just arrange them, and we had one yin-yang. A yin is this one, and this is a yang line. And then we receive the 8 trigrams. And to make it more complex, we just double the trigrams, and we receive the 64 hexagrams, which is the basic element of the book of change of the Yi Jing. And the assumption is that with these 64 pictures, we can explain all what is going to change in the universe. This seems also very surprising because 64 elements is not that much. But if we look further, what we have 64 elements. So this is 64 elements under dependency. So structures a sophisticated and logical model to describe the dynamics of change observed in the universe. Of course, in comparisons with the whole universe based on only 64 elementary pictures, it seems like to be foolish. But when we look closer, so we have also an alphabet to understand life. And this is the 64 DNA molecules. So based on the uracil, cytosine, adenine, and guanine. So this means if we combine these 4 elementary molecules smart enough, then we can develop all the biodiversity we are observing in life. So we are many, many persons here, but we never, no one for us has the same eyes. It's the same with the tree outside in the parks. If each leaf is different than the others. And all this is based on the 64 elements. So this is just to legitimate the validity of the Yi Jing. I mean, in the 64 hexagrams, they are representing some basic element like these molecules. And somehow we may compare them to archetypal images of the mental. So we have with this 64 molecule something like an alphabet for the biology, and with the 64 hexagrams we have an alphabet for the psychic phenomena. So, and as Wolfgang Pauli said in 1930 and something, so the real physics will be the one which are able to unify the matter and the psyche. And probably we have, with these 2 models from DNA and the 64 hexagrams, it is exciting to think on the meta models unifying these 2 models. So, but at the moment, we're still looking for. So, now if we look at the hexagrams more precisely, so we see we have 6 lines. The first, second, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a yin line, a yang, and so on. And you see, this is the 2 basic lines. We call them earth line. And then we have the middle, the fourth and the fifth line, the third and the fourth line in the middles symbolizes the man. And then we have here the 5th line and the 6th line, the heaven. But the whole Chinese, I mean, this story is more than 3,000 years old. There was old countrymen, land workers, and they didn't have the concept we have today. But today we are explaining it. So here, in the heaven, we have the regions where we have our concept. This is the mathematics of the universe. This is the rules, the natural law. And here in the earth, it is the place where this law, where this mathematics is going into form. And now we have the man in between. So the man is something like a chain, a channel between the mathematics forms, the concepts, the ideas, and the realizations of this in real. So, and this concept is, of course, completely neglected by the Newtonian physics. But if we look back to the 1910 years with the beginning of the quantum mechanics, so they have been able to recognize that in quantum mechanics, the observer is very much influencing what is observed. So, and this concept revealed now in the 20th century was already existent in the Yi Jings. So the man is a part of the reality. He is forming the reality. And this is one of the very, okay, 5 what?
5 minutes.
good. So, so now, I take it. Okay. So the synchronicity principle. What is the, all we know about causality principles, who says we have one cause followed by one effect. And the classical technology, the mainstream science accept that everything what happens here is based on the causality principles. But in 1932, C.G. Jung and Wolfgang Pauli, they have postulated the new principle called the synchronicity principles. What's the difference? The synchronicity principle states that we may have two events related not through a causal chain, but because these links create meaning. And this is a big step ahead. We can consider it as somehow like generalizations of the causality effects, but of course the mainstream community just rejects it. Causality implies the objectivity of the cause and effect. It means so if something causal happens, it is the same for me like for you. So we can observe the same things. And this is of course the strength of the causality principles. And regarding the synchronicity principles, it's not possible. I mean, something has some meaning for me, but for another person, the meaning won't be not at all. But it's possible also to have a kind of group of persons experiencing the same synchronicity principles. And this is the fact of my experiences I'm trying to do. So, now, what is the principle between Yi Jing and synchronicity? Yi Jing, when we do an Yi Jing, so we are triggering synchronicity principles, so because we are relating in a state the questioners, we are using random process, using the coins or the sticks, and we are receiving the hexagrams which corresponds to our questions. So this is a link between something exterior and something interior, my questions. And now I come to my, so I skip this. 2 minutes, so then we go here. So what are morphic fields? Morphic fields includes all kinds of organizing fields, the organizing fields of animal and human behaviors, of social and cultural systems, and of mental activity. And we can visualize many electromagnetic fields using steel chips, I will try to visualize morphic fields. And to do this, I'm using Yi Jing. So the principle of the morphing project is a Yi Jing sections is triggering synchronicity. The questions has somehow an archetypal dimensions. And all participants of the experience have the same questions. And the resulting hexagram are analyzed according to well-defined rules. The topics is, the upshot is, if there is a set of hexagrams showing a statistically non-explainable distributions for many experiences involving many persons, come back. Then we may interpret it as a morphic field visualizations. So, and now what happens? 20 persons have shared this experience. The question was, what about genetic manipulations of human embryos? So this is a stochastic process, random process, and if the statistic is true, then every hexagram has the same change to occur, like the other one. But what happened? We have here some peaks, very markant peaks. And the question is, what happens? So, and this looks so, the persons, many of the persons, they have the same unconscious reflections about the genetic manipulations of human embryos. Because we have here clearly a convergence, and if we look at the statistics, so we see that we have, I had for this experience about 220 hexagrams, and with only these 4 hexagrams, I cover 25% of all hexagrams. So this means about among these 20%, there is a big part of the persons have the same meaning without knowing it about genetic manipulations of human embryos. So, and if we go further, I go down, and with about 12 hexagrams, it's just a fifth of the total set. So I can cover 50% of all the hexagram recorded. So it's indicating some very high convergence. I don't try to explain it, I just constating it. So, and if we then do look at the hexagrams, so the most occurring hexagrams, they also are related with very strange symmetries. So this is the 4 hexagrams occurring the most. And we see this is on the top, this is indicating a change. Something in the meaning of the hexagrams, this is indicating that we have to change the attitude, completely change attitude. And this means so we have to accept the technology of gene manipulations, and this will be successful for the humanity if we are able to change the meanings from to 43 to 44. And here down we have the 23, 24th, indicating a new cycle starting again. So it's the 20 hexagram, and this, I'm over. So thank you. So just if you like to train the experience, you can drop me a mail. I'm coming from Switzerland to sell this project, and I will be very happy to have you participating to this big project. It takes less than 15 minutes every 3 weeks. And then you can help to shift the paradigms about what is consciousness.
So please keep your questions short.
You showed 2 examples of how hexagrams are traditionally generated. I'm wondering what sort of random process were used to generate the hexagrams in your test cases.
If I had more time, we could have done collective hexagrams. It's very easy. I mean, the one way is you use quaints. You have 3 quaints. One side is the value 2, the other value 3, and then you check the quaints. And as soon as you feel that's okay now, then the quaints are on the table, you count. And you have the result is maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. And each of these numbers correspond to a line. So a 6 is corresponding to a yin line that is moving to a yang line. A 8 corresponding to a yin line that stays a yang line. A 7 is a yin line that stays yin line, and a 7 is a yang line which does not change, and 9 is a yang line which changing to a yin line. So it takes to calculate an hexagram is about 10 minutes. So you just think on the questions. So in this case, genetic manipulations, and you do 6 times the same, and then you have the hexagrams. And each hexagram is accompanied with a text, a general text, and then for each line, a comment.
So you use coins for this?
I used to use coins, but now I developed a new technology, a new methodology corresponding to the sticks. But basically, the way you are using you are constructing the hexagram is not very critical because this is a synchronicity. So I know people which are just thinking on numbers. They have nothing, so it works quite well because beyond this, it is synchronicity, so completely aside of the scientific world. So it doesn't really matter. You have to choose the technology you like. So
very quickly, another conceptual question.
Yeah.
I'm actually questioning the use of synchronicity in the context of someone approaching an oracle with a question in mind and the intention, and then doing something where either using coins or stocks. To me, that's Yarrow stocks. To me, that's a fundamentally different relationship than people are going about their business and something causal, completely outside of anything they're doing, comes in and informs meaning. So I'm just gonna, and I didn't follow all of your points,
No,
but
But,
I
okay.
just, yeah, I'm not
No,
sure.
I
about
mean, you know, I
asynchronous.
mean, you're right, because most of the times people think synchronicity has to happen. So we are passive. But this is not true. I mean, we can, and that is the new hypothesis on this experience, we can generate synchronicity, because synchronicity is nothing less than just a moment, the link between an internal psychic state and an external object. And this is completely fulfilled with the Yi Jing session.
I guess I would just think about maybe using a different word, because I feel like we're kind of fetishistically now really blowing up all the things that fall under the arch of synchronicity.
I'm happy when I can bring new ideas.
One more, very quick, very quick.
Yeah, I think of when we're doing the I Ching or something, we're trying to act, or a pendulum, whatever, we're trying to access that non-local realm, and that we're trying to, that with practice, people can get better at it. And that, I mean, we all have some native abilities in that realm, but are you working with people, like, to get better accuracy? There's more like training in it to sort of access that easier. And or are you just,
It works too.
you know, so like to get better accuracy on your question that you're...
Well, I mean, it works too. You can use it in like this, like this. There is only one rule. There is no rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on that, we're going to end. Thank you very much, Gabriel. And poster people.